No, Barbie, you'd only get 50 cents a ticket. You'd have to sell tickets to the whole of fucking fingers.
For years, Mrs. Brown's Boys made millions of people laugh. It was pure fun, silly mistakes, familiar faces returning year after year, and a feeling that this was one big family, both on screen and behind the scenes. Everything felt loyal, warm, and unbreakable. Then something slowly changed. Familiar characters disappeared. New faces appeared without much explanation. Storylines brushed past absences with quick jokes and throwaway lines. Fans began asking the same question again and again. If this show was really one big family, why were people walking away? Was it exhaustion, money, or a family line drawn a little too clearly behind the scenes? To understand the truth, you have to look beyond the jokes and into how Mrs. Brown's Boys was built, how it grew, and why cracks eventually appeared. Mrs. Brown's Boys began very quietly. In the early 1990s, Brendan O'Carroll created a single character named Agnes Brown. She first appeared on radio in 1992 on RTE 2FM, where listeners connected with her blunt honesty and everyday family chaos. Brendan then expanded her world through a series of books, including The Mammy, The Chislers, The Granny, and The Young One. The character gained popularity in Ireland before crossing into the UK. In 1999, the story moved to film with Agnes Brown, starring Angelica Huston, proving that Agnes worked not just as a voice or on the page, but on screen as well. After that, Brendan stepped into the role himself, put on the dress, shortened the name, and surrounded Agnes with characters played mostly by relatives and close friends. What began as a personal, creative idea slowly became a family business built on real relationships. Those early stories were filmed as straight-to-DVD episodes and later became stage plays. The stage years were crucial. Mrs. Brown's Boys toured Ireland and then the UK, often struggling at first to sell tickets outside Ireland. The turning point came in Glasgow at the Pavilion Theatre, where a simple 2-for-1 ticket offer filled seats and sparked word of mouth. For years after that, multiple Mrs. Brown shows ran there for weeks at a time. The performances were messy, full of mistakes, and full of laughter, and those mistakes were kept in the recordings. The cast lived like a traveling family, eating together, working together, and sharing the same routines. That closeness gave the comedy its energy, but it also meant everything depended on a tight inner circle. In 2009, the BBC changed everything. BBC Scotland producers Stephen McCrum asked Brendan to adapt the stage show into a television sitcom. Brendan wrote a pilot, cast more family members, and filmed it later that year. Within weeks of delivery, the BBC ordered a full series, with RTE joining as co-producer, alongside Brendan's company, BOC Picks. When the show aired in 2011, it kept the loose stage feel. Mistakes stayed in, props broke, cast members laughed at each other, and Agnes spoke directly to the audience. Viewers felt like guests in her living room. That style made the show stand out, but it also introduced pressure. Fixed filming schedules, long production blocks, and rising expectations replaced the freedom of the stage. Success exploded. Christmas specials became the most watched shows of the year. Awards followed from BAFTA, the Irish Film and Television Awards, and TV Choice. DVD sales hit the millions. International broadcasts pushed the show across Europe, North America, and beyond. A feature film followed, along with arena tours, spin-offs, and specials. What once felt like a small touring group was now carrying a global brand. The work never stopped. Tours, series, Christmas episodes, DVDs, films, and development meetings stacked up. On screen, it still looked effortless. Off-screen, the pressure grew heavier every year. At the center of everything was Agnes Brown. She wasn't just the main character, she was the anchor of the entire franchise. Agnes appeared in spin-offs, specials, chat shows, and films. Everywhere the brand went, she went too. And behind Agnes stood Brendan O'Carroll, who not only wrote and starred in the show, but controlled casting and production. That gave the show consistency and chemistry, but it also meant that when someone left, they weren't just quitting a job, they were stepping away from a tight family system where personal and professional lives were deeply mixed. On screen, the Brown family reflected that same conflict and care. Grandad Brown and Redzer Brown showed harsh humor layered with real affection. Agnes fought with them constantly, but moments of tenderness revealed deep bonds. The Brown children carried stories of struggle, loyalty, and acceptance. Mark faced literacy difficulties. Rory came out as gay and married Dino. Kathy searched endlessly for love. Dermot juggled work and fatherhood. Trevor followed a path of faith and charity. These stories felt real because many of the actors playing them were real family members, spouses, or in-laws. That closeness was the show's strength, but it also created clear divisions. When actors who were not part of the O'Carroll family began questioning decisions, the gap became visible. Rory Cohen's exit in 2017 was the first major crack. After playing Rory Brown for 26 years across radio, stage, and television, he admitted he was simply unhappy and bored. The fixed BBC format had drained the excitement for him. There was no dramatic fallout, no money row. He had earned enough to leave and wanted his life back. His departure was emotional but respectful, and the role was quickly recast to keep the show moving. The next departures were more painful. In 2020, Gary Hollywood, who played Dino, and Damien McKiernan, who had taken over the role of Rory, both left after disputes over pay. They reportedly discovered they were earning less than others and felt uncomfortable raising the issue. Sources described the atmosphere as upstairs downstairs, with Brendan's family protected and non-family actors feeling undervalued. On screen, their absence was brushed off with a joke about going abroad. Off-screen, it marked the moment fans began to suspect the exits were about fairness, not just creative burnout. Money and pressure had been quietly building for years. Tax arrangements revealed in the Paradise Papers drew attention to how earnings were structured within the production. Brendan clashed publicly with BBC executives over censorship and scheduling, refusing to change the show's language or tone. Critics regularly attacked the show as outdated and crude, even as ratings stayed high. On top of all this, Brendan carried personal grief and health scares while continuing to lead a massive franchise that depended almost entirely on him. When you put it all together, the departures from Mrs. Brown's Boys were never about one single issue. They were about exhaustion, creative stagnation, money, fairness, and the strain of working inside a family-run empire where not everyone felt equally protected. What looked like simple comedy was in reality a heavy machine powered by loyalty, pressure, and constant work. And once that balance tipped, walking away became the only option for some.